About a year ago, after I got dumped, I made my most impactful video on this channel. It was called Getting Through a Breakup, What I've Learned. Till this day, I still get messages and DMs from people asking for further advice and thanking me for helping them heal. And one of the things I said in that video was this: time heals all. It's the most cliche thing ever, but it is the most true thing out of anything that I have said. For many people, this is great advice. Sometimes we just need to reflect on what happened and grow out of it. But the more feedback that I got, the more that I realized this might not always be true. Since that video, I've gotten tons of messages from people still stuck in the grievance stage of their breakup 2, 3, or even 4 years after it's already happened. So what is it about these people specifically that's causing them to be unable to heal through time? Well, time will not end up fully healing you if the experience of a breakup, or any painful experience for that matter, leaves a traumatic imprint on your brain, mind, and body, causing radical changes in these systems. Put more succinctly, these people have experienced a form of trauma that can't simply be healed through the passage of time. And in today's video, which is part 2 of 2 in my video series on trauma, we're gonna go over the methods used in the recovery process. If you haven't yet watched my first video on trauma, I highly suggest that you do so, because I'm going to be using some concepts that I explained in that video that might be kind of hard to understand if you haven't watched it yet. And like the last video, most of the ideas that I'll be presenting from this video are from the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which I highly recommend everyone picks up if they want an even deeper look into the subject. So let's pick up where we left off last video and give a brief recap of what causes trauma and what changes because of it. If a painful experience is too much for the human psyche to bear, or lasts too long and feels inescapable, the brain, mind, and body will reshape you to be in a chronic state of survival or shock. And because of that, you are less able to open yourself up to love, creativity, self-exploration, and vulnerability, which are all essential aspects of feeling alive and human. After you've experienced something so unspeakable, how do you learn to trust yourself or anyone else ever again? How can you surrender to an intimate relationship after being violated? And how can you explore your passions and interests if your reality up until this point has taught you to constantly be in survival mode? These are the questions that we will be trying to answer through recovery. Recovery from trauma is a very complex process that varies from individual to individual, but amongst all cases, this is pretty much what the process looks like. It involves finding a way to become calm and focused, learning to maintain that calm in response to images, thoughts, sounds, or physical sensations that remind you of the past, finding a way to feel fully alive in the present and engaged with people around you, and not having to keep secrets from yourself, including secrets about the ways you managed to survive. This process can be boiled down into 4 main components: mindfulness, movements, rhythms, and action. So let's start off with mindfulness and what exactly it means. At the core of recovery is self-awareness. That is, being able to quietly observe oneself and notice what exactly is going on with your bodily sensations when you are reminded of a past traumatic experience. This is why the most important phrases in trauma therapy are "notice that" and "what happens next." The goal of this process is to make you less reactive to your triggers so you can finally create the space to explore, accept, and integrate those traumatic memories into the present moment. We want to get from the state in the top part of this picture to the bottom part, and you can pause the video here if you need to. Following what we learned in the last video, you need to train your brain to activate the higher level rational areas associated with self-awareness and emotional regulation, and to make the emotional brain less reactive so it doesn't immediately turn on your nervous system, start releasing stress hormones, and preparing for danger. And one of the ways in which to do so is with what is called EMDR. EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is a method in which a trained therapist uses something called bilateral stimulation to reprocess traumatic memories, resulting in painful feelings being exchanged for more resolved, peaceful feelings. This might sound a little confusing, so let me break it down in simpler terms. First, the therapist creates a safe space for you to identify and work through a certain memory or emotion. They then tell you to focus on their fingers moving back and forth in front of your face, or a sound, or maybe some sort of tapping, and take you through the process of just letting your mind run freely while simply just noticing what is happening to you, instead of immediately attaching to it. After each set of that, the therapist then might ask you questions based on what comes up and encourage you to explore those sensations and feelings. And you repeat that process until the distressing emotions decrease. The reason this has been proven to work better than traditional therapy is all in the bilateral stimulation. Something about the movement of fingers in front of your face, a sound, or tapping loosens something up in the mind and brain that gives people rapid access to loosely associated images and memories from the past, without becoming overly reactive to it like they usually do. This seems to help put the traumatic experience into a larger context or perspective. It also doesn't even require a verbal give and take. Like we saw in the last video, the Broca's area, or the part of your brain that helps you produce speech, gets shut off when reliving a traumatic experience. By using a more visual or auditory process to go through your traumatic memories and observe them, you can heal without needing the ability to talk about what you're feeling or what happened. This is something you should only try with a trained and licensed EMDR therapist, so if you're interested in this type of treatment, I suggest looking up EMDR therapist near me on Google. EMDR seems to be effective for stuck traumatic memories, but it doesn't necessarily resolve the betrayal and abandonment that usually accompanies something like physical or SA from your childhood. We'll be going over how to heal from that type of trauma a little bit later in this video. Now, if you aren't yet ready to pursue professional help, there are still some options for you online or to do at your home that can help boost your self-awareness. And these too will help you become more attuned to your physical state and your sensations that come from your body to help you reprocess those memories and feelings. Firstly, there's a writing process that you can use by yourself. Writing to yourself about what you went through without showing anyone can help you without the need to produce any sort of verbal speech. It allows you to process things that you couldn't previously put into words, and things that you have never even realized about what you went through may come up. Here's a suggestion from the book. Pick a random object to write about and write what comes to mind with no revisions. Before you start that process, make sure you're safe and comfortable first, and pay attention exactly to how your body, mind, and brain reacts to what you write. Secondly, you can do one of my favorite practices that I do every single day, twice a day, which is mindfulness meditation. It's been shown that mindfulness meditation has the power to literally restructure the brain and improve your ability to activate the rational parts of your brain associated with self-awareness and emotional control. In other words, it improves one's ability to become more attuned to their bodily sensations, and specifically the ones that arise when you revisit trauma. Through that process, you can recognize them and not identify with them immediately in the present. Now, this is quite a difficult practice to do on your own without guidance at the start. It's gonna feel weird, and even if you have been trying it for a long time and you still don't feel comfortable doing it alone. So to help with that, you can use my favorite guided meditation app, which is Aura. Despite having what I believe to be pretty good emotional intelligence and control, I still get some lingering anxiety and stress when I feel myself getting overworked or overwhelmed. With Aura, I'm basically using Spotify, but for my mind and soul. It's an all-in-one app for your well-being and sleep and has thousands of meditations, stories, breathwork exercises, and a ton more. Aura's content is created by hundreds of expert coaches and therapists around the world, and they offer a completely personalized experience as you go through the process of signing up for the app, which is what I really love about it. I find myself getting a lot of stress relief when I put on the meditation practice called deliberate breathing for acute anxiety relief. It allows me to become more present-minded and observe my bodily movements and sensations without judgment, so I can accept them and move on from them. Out of all the meditation apps that I've used that provide you with resources to help with stress and anxiety, this one is by far my favorite. If you want to finally begin your daily mindfulness meditation practice with the help of a professional guide, then you can get started completely for free on Aura's website using the link in my description. And the first 500 people to use that link will get a free trial and 25% off their premium subscription plan. So go take advantage of that offer while you can. I absolutely love this app, and thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. It is really only when you're able to to engage in the present moment in a way that doesn't evoke immediate terror or danger out of you, that you can stop yourself when you feel these negative emotions rising. It is then that you can acknowledge them and acknowledge the fact that they are a conditioned response to the painful experiences of the past and give them the attention and healing they so desperately desire. And another way to do that, which is particularly beneficial to those with childhood trauma, is what is called internal family systems, or IFS for short. If you've been in a terrible environment since adolescence and most of your developing years had you caught in such an environment, then you need to reconfigure your brain-mind system that was constructed to cope with the worst. Just as we need to revisit traumatic memories in order to integrate them, we need to revisit the parts of ourselves that developed the defensive habits that helped us survive. You see, we all have different parts of ourselves. Self-loathing coexists and fights with pretentiousness. Loving care with hatred. And numbing and passivity coexist with rage and aggression. These extreme parts of ourselves bear the burden of trauma. For example, we all have parts of ourselves that are childlike and fun. When we are abused, these are the parts that hurt the most and they become frozen, carrying the pain, terror, and betrayal of the abuse. This burden makes them toxic, and we tell ourselves that we need to deny these parts of ourselves at all costs. IFS recognizes that all humans want to nurture themselves, and one must first accept that all parts of oneself, even self-sabotage, is doing that as a way to protect itself. To properly work with these different parts of ourselves, we need to cultivate mindful self-leadership. Beneath the surface of the protective parts of trauma survivors, there exists an undamaged essence, a self that is confident, curious, and calm, that has been sheltered from destruction by the various protectors that have emerged in their efforts to ensure survival. This is what we call the mindful self. With the help of a therapist, the mindful self learns to separate the confusing blend of the different parts of yourself into separate entities. If you've had childhood trauma or some other form of trauma, you probably only fully identify with a specific part of yourself when it arises. For example, when people are going through pain, depression, or anger, they tell themselves, "I want to not exist," or "I hate you," rather than the more accurate phrases of, "A part of me wishes I didn't exist," or "A part of me gets triggered when you do that and makes me pissed at you." When that happens, the therapist encourages you to simply ask each protective part as it arises to stand back temporarily so you can see what it is protecting. When this is done again and again, the parts begin to unblend from the self and make for mindful self-observation. And you can learn to put your fear, rage, and disgust on hold and instead open yourself up to states of curiosity and self-reflection. This is something I try to get you to constantly think about with many videos on my channel. To use mindfulness to visit those damaged parts of yourself that are trying to protect you, start to question why they're there and where they came from, and then start to nurse those parts of yourself and give them the physical and emotional safety they need. Doing so will stop the destructive cycle you may be in, like compulsively drinking, doing drugs, or playing video games as a way to lock up the emotional pain. You need to get to the point where you can become open to the experience of exploration and acceptance. And through mindfulness practices and the help of a therapist, you can make that process a lot easier. There's a lot more about IFS that I couldn't discuss for the sake of keeping this video going, so if you're interested in learning more and you think it might help you specifically, then I suggest, again, reading the book or watching a video here on YouTube about it. So a lot of what I've been describing so far has to do with becoming aware of what's happening to you and putting a name to what's happening when you revisit those traumatic experiences. But another part of the process of healing from trauma involves actually moving your body and doing something with it as well. Because once you can tolerate being aware of your trauma-based physical experiences, you are likely to discover powerful physical impulses like running, pushing, and hitting that arose during trauma but were suppressed in order to survive. Amplifying these movements and experimenting with ways to modify them allows you to bring the incomplete traumatic memory to the present and complete it and resolve it. And one of the best ways to strengthen our vital connection to our bodies and start to feel and interpret our physical sensations is through a yoga practice. All yoga practices consist of a combination of breath practices called pranayama, stretches or postures called asanas, and meditation. The primary goal of yoga when used to treat trauma specifically is to improve your heart rate variability, or HRV. Basically, this is how your heart rate increases as you inhale and decreases as you exhale. You can try it right now if you'd like. See how your heart rate slightly increases as you take a breath in and slightly decreases as you take a breath out. In the book, van der Kolk provides some really great illustrations to show what is happening to someone's heart rate with PTSD. The first graph shows what heart rate variability looks like in a well-regulated person. The rising and falling lines represent breathing, and in this case, slow and regular inhalations and exhalations. The next graph is what our HRV looks like when we're upset. When someone remembers an upsetting experience, breathing speeds up and becomes irregular, as does heart rate. And in someone with chronic PTSD, this is what their HRV usually looks like. Breathing is rapid and shallow, and heart rate is out of sync with the breath. Variations in the speed and depth of breathing and use of the mouth, nostrils, and throat all produce different results, and some techniques have powerful effects on your energy. In yoga, you focus your attention on your breathing and your sensations from moment to moment. The first task for someone with trauma practicing yoga is to simply just learn to focus on the in and out of the breath, to notice whether the breath was fast or slow, and to count breaths in some poses. It's a combination of both passive and active mindfulness, and it offers you a new way to view what is happening to you physiologically when the past emerges. Depending on the pose, it can cause some really strong emotional reactions. For example, I felt that when I practice yoga and I do any sort of hip opening pose and I let my pelvic floor muscles relax, I can literally feel negative emotions being released from my body. Simply noticing what you feel fosters emotional regulation, and it stops you from ignoring what is going on inside of you. Now, depending on the type of trauma you have, you may have to go at a very slow pace. Some poses can leave people too vulnerable and cause flashbacks and make them want to quit the practice. Which is why if you have chronic PTSD, I suggest that you do this with the help of a professional. But even if you don't live in a state of chronic PTSD, if you're looking for one of the best ways to connect with your emotions, feelings, and bodily sensations, and improve your ability to take deep, slow breaths, then you should absolutely start a yoga practice. In the book, there's this story about this woman who came to van der Kolk who was suffering from, I think, some form of SA, and she wrote to him the experience that she had when she tried to do yoga at home. She wrote to him, "This week I tried doing yoga at home and these words came to me. Your body has things to say. And I said back to myself, I will listen." This is crucial towards getting to the point of healing and accepting the past. Lastly, I want to tell you this in case you need to hear it. Whatever you've gone through or continue to go through, I promise you that there is a way out. There is a solution out there and you can get better. You are capable of that. You are deserving of feeling loved, cared for, and of feeling joy. You just have to uncover the part of yourself that will finally make you realize that. You can and you will get to the point where you can simply just explore life without being in a chronic state of fear or shock. Please take action to apply what you've learned here and don't give up. There are several other recovery methods that I could not fit into this video that are in the book, and tons of other stories that you may be able to relate with. So if you are looking for more information on this and you really want a life-changing book, please go check it out. It is gonna be in the description below. And if you know someone who is suffering from their past experiences, please share these videos with them. Thank you very much to all the patrons on this channel on Patreon. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where I'm posting exclusive content you can't find anywhere else, and you can also talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. I've made many personal development videos on this channel, so go check out the whole playlist if you're still struggling and you need more help. I hope those help you, and I love you guys. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Peace.